Welcome back to Drones in America by MarketScale. I'm your host, Grant Giat, and I'm a partner and the unmanned aircraft systems team leader at the law firm of Adams & Reese. Today, I'm joined by William Pryor, who is the manager of enterprise solutions for Skycatch. William, welcome to the program.
Grant, thanks for having me on. Really excited to have the discussion today. Talk about some mature applications for drones, both in America and abroad.
And I'm excited to touch on several of the activities that Skycatch is involved in, but mining I always think is a real interesting, cool use case. One that I find is not talked about as much as it should be because it's incredibly important. So I'm excited to talk about that and of course the other things that Skycatch is up to. So start by telling me a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. So yeah, you mentioned I'm the applications manager at Skycatch, and my background is in mechanical engineering. I joined up with our CEO in the early days, 2013, to design and build an autonomous drone. I describe it like a Roomba drone. It had a nest and would go, fly missions autonomously and land. That's basically what we started Skycatch to do. We patented that technology. I know you discuss, regulatory a lot in this program, and of course, that's this remotely deployable drone in a box is still something that's, not exactly permitted in the BVLOS regulations. We pivoted to doing, continuing in that frame of mind of automation. We wanted to make, the data capture as automated as possible. So we're one of the first to put a high precision GPS on a drone to get survey quality data. We've worked with surveyors a great deal, both in construction and mining. Myself, my arc has been, going from the technical side, working with users in the field, understanding their problems. And now I basically evangelize, the kinds of solutions that we can bring to our customers, by using our high precision systems.
Now tell me a little bit about your customer base. Are there certain parts of the United States where you have more customers, or certain areas that lend themselves more to the type of drone activities that Skycatch is able to perform?
Sure. We have customers across the U.S. In construction and mining. On the mining side, I would say a lot in the Southwest region where there's a lot of copper mining, gold mining. Not too far away from us. We're San Francisco based, and just across the border in Nevada is a huge gold field actually that's mined by a number of different companies. So I would say we're quite active in the West, and also in North America, both in Mexico and Canada.
This is really interesting because I've been hearing a lot lately about gold and how gold, of course, has always been important, but there are those who are looking at economic factors and there have been several presidential administrations, really both sides, that have been pushing for a return to the gold standard. And it's always interesting when you think about it because someone has to mine that, right? And that's the whole point of going back to a standard like that, is you only have so much. Do you think, should it ever come to that, do you think drones could play a role in that? And, playing a pivotal role in obviously mining for it, but playing a part in getting as much currency as we can, since that will be what the currency is based off of?
That's an interesting question, and I would answer it this way. I mean, you're talking about something very fundamental, and that is true about the mining industry. A miner once told me, if it's not farmed, it's mined. Right? This is where everything in our world comes from. It's either grown on a farm or it's mined. And so, it's been great operating in the mining sector where, the demand really doesn't go away. For as long as people are buying things, for as long as we're building things, we will need these natural resources. As far as gold, I would say that the, drone scanning in our world, and this is something I'd love to get into kind of on this program, is we see a rapid advance in automation across, all parts of mining. And this started really before the drone boom that's happening now. But what the drones do enable is to basically extract more material with less people. And this is something, of course, that the mining industry is pursuing very much. So yeah, to answer your question, I mean, I do want to say that we can extract gold, more cheaply, more easily, and at greater scale by using, drones as a component of your automated mining system. Now, how that would impact, using the gold standard in America, I would say is, what I would have to talk to, an economics professor for that one.
But I mean, I think the general concept is there's an expectation there'll be gold there. So in any event, being able to locate the gold and mine it, I think is obviously a necessary component of it. So that's interesting. Every day I feel like I'm learning of something new that drones can assist in, no matter which way this world, how it transforms, how the economy transforms. It seems like drones are going to have a place no matter what, and that's what's very interesting to me. We've seen how many industries it impacts, and of course mining is no exception. So I know that you hinted that you have some regulatory-based news coming out. I don't know how much you can get into that, but do you maybe want to give a tease if you can, or as much as you can tell us about it?
Well, sure. So we have been working closely with Skycatch started making our own hardware, really a full end-to-end system, right? So, and we still provide to our customers, a drone, processing software, field hardware, basically everything you need to deliver data in the field, to a mining operation that has to measure their site constantly, right? So anybody who's measuring change in the physical world, construction, mining, infrastructure, that's really where we focus. We've seen actually, and it's been an interesting, to witness, well, on one side, frankly, how difficult it's been to build hardware in the U.S. Right? We've seen a number of U.S.-based companies, struggling really to get traction in having a big hardware footprint. And meanwhile, the elephant in the room, DJI, is continuing to put out great product. And now I think we've seen in the past last couple of years that these they're beginning to adopt some of these high precision systems that are needed for survey grade data. They're really moving beyond that videography kind of application that they started with. And that was very good for us because we no longer needed to, manufacture our own systems. Of course, they have an integrated, manufacturing and design basically facility. And yet, there's still a lot of hesitance around, buying DJI in America. There are a lot of the, concerns around data privacy and overall, basically use of this overseas product. I'm happy to see more U.S. companies. I think we're kind of in a little bit of a second boom right now in U.S.-based companies and legitimate alternatives to DJI. And I think you'll see Skycatch playing a part in that by being able to work with OEMs on both sides of the ocean, a little more closely to bring systems that work for people domestically, right? So we want to help answer this challenge of, great product with maybe the question mark around data privacy. Skycatch will be playing a part in helping ensure data privacy for, OEMs around the world.
That's fantastic because you're right. Data privacy is a huge concern, and it's actually not the white elephant because sometimes I rip the Band-Aid off, sometimes the guest does. But we discuss the DJI China relationship all the time on here, and in fact, I've actually had Brendan's been on the show before, and we've discussed it. And the truth of the matter is that it's not so much. It does matter what the truth is and what actually is happening with our data and what is not. But what's the most important thing for all of us in the industry to do is we don't have control over the actions that the government takes in terms of Chinese manufactured drones. So we need to do what we can as an industry to not let ourselves be hamstrung by the fact that DJI has 90% or whatever the share is now of the market. And we are seeing, you're right, it is a huge boom. It's a huge growth of American, not just American, Canadian, Israeli made products that are lining up for type certification. I know I represent a few manufacturers that are involved in that process, and it is definitely a new day. It is something that the industry is very excited about. really the type certification aspect of it ties heavily into drone deliveries, I believe, because in my opinion, it was a chain event. You had COVID that made people start appreciating drone deliveries more. With the appreciation for drone deliveries came more companies wanting to do drone deliveries. The FAA taking a stance and saying, we're going to cut down the 44807 exemptions and you're going to need to get type certified. So now we have a lot of type certified drones, and I could go on and on. But the point is that we are seeing this appreciation for American made products, and it looks like that's only set to continue. In terms of Skycatch and with the technology and the tools that you want to empower users with, how much do FAA regulations bear on that? Do they affect the ability of Skycatch to really scale out their products, or has it not been as big of an issue?
That's a great question. The FAA has enabled. We have to sort of thank the regulators for enabling this commercial commercial drone industry in the U.S. I would say it's also been very fortunate that we've had global experience too. So I would say, for Skycatch in particular, Japan, we've had a great deal of experience there, and also Australia, which, as a shout out to any of the Australian listeners out there, the regulators in Australia have done a really good job of leading the pack. In fact, I find what's happening in Australia is different than the process here, where the regulation actually leads the technology, right? The regulators are thinking way ahead, and they're creating common sense rules around commercial drone use. Whereas in America, what we find is that the regulations follow the technological innovation. If the industry had greater support from the FAA for BV loss operations, starting a decade ago, Skycatch might be selling something different today, right? We may have been able to continue with this idea of remotely deployable drone in a box. But all this said, I would say that in mining and construction, where we have some clientele as well, these are generally closed sites, private sites, right? You can control everyone who's underneath, and oftentimes they're in fairly remote locations. So it is kind of nice in that way. We have a bit of a sandbox to play around in, and we don't have the kind of serious complexities that come with operating in urban environments. So I wouldn't say that the FAA has particularly helped us. I think we can really look abroad for countries that have done very well in leading with regulation. But we don't really feel too hamstrung by it, I would say.
Well, that's good to hear. And your analysis of Australia versus the U.S. regulatory authority is actually, I believe, spot on. It's, as a regulatory attorney operating this space, it's something that I see daily. And what I will tell you is that the FAA, it is, I believe, like you say it is the FAA regulations kind of following the technology. But I will also say, there's a perception about the FAA that they do hold things back, but really, I think it's because of the relationship and the pattern you just described. It's not so much they're holding things back, it's that they are taking that following role. They want industry to innovate and push things forward, and then they want you to prove the safety case, and that's kind of opposite of how things are done in Australia. I think both methods have their advantages and disadvantages, but it's just the way it is. But nevertheless, you bring up a very interesting point about the types of situations in which the mining industry, how they have to handle drone safety, the safety of the environment in which operations happen. Tell me a little bit about that, because I find that interesting. So obviously I know about drones over construction work sites. I know about drones over telecom and energy towers. And of course we know about drones over the roads and deliveries, but I want to hear about mining, because I find that interesting.
Sure. So, quite broadly, I would say that, again, your typical mine site, I'll think back actually, man, to my, where I sort of cut my teeth in mining, which was across the street, literally from Edwards Air Force Base, in the Mojave Desert. And this was one of the world's largest borax or borate mines. So remote location, obviously restricted access. So, it's not as if there are, personnel anybody who could be around the drone operation, is covered by personal protective equipment rules and things like that. And then furthermore, I would say, on a typical mine site, I mean, most of the time people are in either a vehicle or a piece of equipment. So to have individuals walking around on the ground, under who could potentially be, underneath an operation is, small enough to say I would call it almost statistically negligible. And I would say that is generally how the mine operators work. And in fact, our technology has been pushed and sort of advanced by customers whose whole MO is actually to remove people from the mining area as much as possible. If you look, machine to machine automation, and I've, I love how you've covered some great topics around automation on this podcast previously. Something that I think about is, automation begets automation. And an example of this is in the mining industry where, here in San Francisco, I see, a dozen self-driving cars a day, right? And operating, Google and so on. And that's kind of interesting. Now, it's notable. And yet I think a lot of people don't know this. The mining industry has had self-driving mining trucks, right? These are 300-ton trucks, have been operating for over a decade in mining, right? So the part of the reason that they can do this is because, again, it's restricted access. They build their own infrastructure. These are trucks driving on roads that they've designed. And it really becomes an area where a lot of innovation can happen because it's closed off to the general public. And that overall theme in mining that we're seeing, in particular, if for the listeners who know about photogrammetry and 3D data capture, we don't require any ground control points. We don't require any ground survey to receive accurate data from our systems. And the main thing that enables, why our customers like that is because we don't need to have surveyors going into the mining area to, do ground survey in addition to their drone scan. We can fly, far away from the active mining area. And more we see, robotics advancing in those active mining areas, right? I mentioned the haul trucks, which are on some sites have been autonomously driven for over a decade. Also mining drills. And then I think, a lot of the heavy equipment OEMs, like Komatsu, who's a partner of ours, are moving towards greater automation there too. So what this means is, you have this remote area. It's hard to get people in, often very challenging, circumstances to work in, very hot or very remote, very cold, 24-hour, shifts. And those are ideal for robot jobs, right? We talk about dull, dirty, and dangerous, right? Those are the places where these robotic, systems excel.
Right. And I pride myself in, I will flat out tell you if I don't know something, and I do not know the answer to this legal question I'm about to ask. I hope you do, because I find it fascinating, and I've never encountered it. I know when we take drones and we place them in warehouses for warehouse inspections, that's not governed by the FAA because you're not flying in the national airspace. What happens when you take a drone and you fly it underground in a mine?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. My inclination is that it also would apply similarly to the enclosed
warehouse
that you talked about.
I would think so. I mean, I'll admit it, I could be completely wrong, but it's interesting. I've never thought about it till now, but it's just very interesting what applies. I mean, certainly you're going to have OSHA implications because you have people in a dangerous work site, but beyond that, though, does the FAA even have regulatory authority when you're operating underground? I don't know, but now I know I have a research project to do after this because
there must be some kind of definition around, where the airspace begins, right? And an interesting thing that we know is it goes all the way down to the ground, right?
The tip of the lowest blade of grass, I think, is the traditional, how it's traditionally categorized. Because you have people in backyards wanting to own their aerial space, but no, typically the stance that's been taken by the federal government is they own from the top of the blade of grass up. But what we're talking about here is going below the blade. So that's interesting.
Right, right. Yeah, I would love to hear some, an audience member or potentially, there's another company called HoverMap, which really is focused on that underground mapping sector.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, no, that's interesting. And another thing you mentioned earlier, and you talked about the machine-to-machine automation, and you mentioned you wanted to touch more on how you see automation playing into the use of drones for mining construction. You want to talk a little bit more about that, about autonomy? We do talk about that quite a bit on this program because it's the thing about autonomy is that everyone wants to move in that direction, and we believe we will get there eventually. But first, with autonomy, you're talking about machine learning. You're talking about, and you know this better than me, a machine is able to do something on its own without a human telling it what to do, right? When we're talking about traditional drone operations, you still have a human, a pilot in command, telling the drone what to do. So while the FAA has indicated its awareness that we're moving in the direction of autonomy, we're definitely going to have to look at things like really enhancing BVLOS regulations, detect and avoid technology, and then of course there's the infrastructure issues and how all that plays into creating an ecosystem by which all forms of transportation can interact. Now, but with mining though, again, I find it interesting because it's kind of its own thing. When we're talking about autonomy, tell me like a use case or give me an example of what a truly autonomous drone could do in the mining context that our listeners may not really be aware of.
Yeah, I would love to. And this is, I'll start by saying this is not, a dream. This is really reality. And
Right.
It's amazing to see this firsthand. Again, I'll give a shout out to a great partner that we have, which is Komatsu, right? They're like the Toyota of, earth moving equipment. For a number of years, we developed along with Komatsu. So, they're building bulldozers, they're building excavators, they're putting GPSs on these equipment so that we can really measure, what the operator is doing inside the cab, right? We can see what the operator is doing. The first thing that was introduced in that layer was the Skycatch drone, right? So you can imagine, it could be at a mine that they're cutting a new access ramp to a new level, a new area of gold, ore that they have found. A mining engineer will create a design in CAD, and then the drone will be used to collect topological data, of the existing condition, right? So they have the starting condition, they have the ending condition of where they want the ramp to be, and the vision of this smart construction, or you could extend it to smart mining, would be that basically the delta between how it is today and how you want it to be gets broken down into daily tasks that can be done by a bulldozer, by an excavator, by a road grader. And these all are pieces of equipment now that have enough technology on board to almost drive themselves, right? So I would say the operator's not out of the cab yet, but it's kind of like cruise control, right? The drone is flying over on a daily basis, taking that new existing condition, issuing new work orders basically to the individual pieces of equipment. And, this will be repeated in a feedback cycle until the job is complete. And so this replaces what I would call a very open-ended, process where general kind of instructions, dig, we need to move 20 feet down, in the next 100 feet. These kind of very not as quantitative kind of information is maybe being given to the operators, and then surveyors come out and they have to check the operator's work, and it becomes much more nebulous process to manage. With the automated, earth moving equipment and then the automated drone, you're getting feedback, as many times as you want to fly the drone, you can get feedback. I think daily or a couple times a day would be a typical cadence. And then, you have an automated system that's doing basically survey grade operation. And I'll put it this way. I mean, this is how we're going to build our first moon base. When we, humans, Americans go back to the moon, where the astronauts are living, it's going to be there when we get there, right? Mm-hmm. It's not going to, we're not going to have astronauts in hard hats, basically with a pickaxe, right?
Mhm.
It's going to be an automated system, and then now we've seen drone flights on other planets too. So I think it's very exciting, right? This kind of self-contained system. It's a bunch of robots working together. We can deploy it somewhere on Earth or on another planet, and actually begin to do that sort of terraforming remotely. It's a very powerful idea.
Space mining is such a fascinating topic, and I heard recently that Elon Musk was doing some stuff, additional stuff with space mining, and so I think the potential for drones to be utilized in processes like that is also there, and that's going to be fantastic to see. I think presidents or someone a while ago started saying space is the future, and then we've just heard it, and I think that's certainly, there's something to that. So it's great to see drones playing a role in that. So it sounds like Skycatch has a lot going on. It's great that you guys are doing well and really transforming the construction and mining industries. Is there any other news or any upcoming events you want to share with us?
I would just say to the listeners, we have a great webinar series where we bring on basically users. It's not people like me pitching. It's really our users talking about how they're using the system. And so for anybody out there, and I think a lot of your listeners are in this place of growing from the sort of the amateur into the commercial space. And so if you want to learn about how the kinds of applications and the more technical applications of drone data. We have a webinar series that you'll be able to find on our website, skycatch.com. And we'd love to have you join there to get more information from us about the cool ways that people are using our systems today.
Fantastic. Well, William, it's been great having you on the program. I look forward to keeping in touch with you and having you back on the program. Please, keep us advised of all your great progress. Skycatch is doing a phenomenal job, and we thank you again.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. It's been a pleasure, and I'd love to come back. I know you host some great panels, so keep me in mind for that, and we'd love to have a conversation in the future. And thanks for all the great work that you do.
Absolutely, I'd be honored to have you on a panel in the future. So that's actually, now that I think about it, normally it's about 9 months out when conferences start asking for topics. So I definitely will keep that in mind. So thanks again. And to the listeners, please be sure to follow MarketScale on all their various social media websites. They'll be having a giveaway for a Drones in America t-shirt. And I know those will be in high demand. So please be sure to follow the social media sites for MarketScale. And thank you again. And we look forward to seeing you next week on the next episode of Drones in America by MarketScale.